closest I ever felt to God was had to be late one night. My mom, she was a very spiritual person, and she and I, we talked a lot. And it seemed like I was the one out of 7 children. I'm the middle child, and for some reason it seems like I got the late hours with my mom. And during those hours, she would share some things with me that kind of started to make sense of God and church. Growing up in church all my life, you get used to it and it becomes like anything else. In our church, you got to understand, it's a Pentecostal church, and so it's one of those churches where they swing from the chandelier and hallelujah and shout and have a good time. Well, also things, intense prayer and spiritual things, demonstrations we'd see at our church at times. And there was something that happened in the service one Sunday night that when I saw it, it shook me to my core. It actually scared me. And that night, I was playing the organ that night. I was a musician at our church. I was playing the organ that night, and I can remember when I saw what I saw, I looked at my mom immediately, and she gave me the quiet sign. And so I knew she saw what I saw. She understood where I was. And so late that night, we were at home, and she opened up a conversation with me. She began to explain what I saw and the spiritual side of it. And I really felt like that was God pulling at me and explaining himself and actually revealing himself to me. So I really felt close to God that night. The time I felt the greatest distance from God have to be when I went to school. I graduated high school and I stayed home, and I was a substitute teacher in Lauderdale County for a semester. And that spring semester of '93, I went away to college to Murfreesboro at MTSU. And during that time, I was dating a girl. And that girl told me that her mom wanted her to break up with me. And there I was outdone. I was really upset because, you know, I wasn't doing anything bad. I didn't think I was a bad influence. And so she meant a lot to me at the time. I actually thought, you know, this is the one. And so I went to school, and I was devastated over the fact that I had broken up, or this girl had broken up with me. And so at that moment, I decided, you know, this church stuff, I've done it all my life. I'm not, you know, I don't want to do this anymore. I think there's another path for me to follow. And so during that time, I got out of church. For anybody else, maybe this wouldn't seem like a big deal, but for 4 weeks, I remember it was 4 weeks straight, I didn't go to anybody's church. And that's a big deal because, mind you, previously I was born in church, and we did Sunday morning, Sunday night, Tuesday night, Friday night, and revivals in between. And so church was like second nature to me. But at this time, I felt like God had allowed me to have my heart broken. And in essence, he had let me down, that I was trusting him for my happiness. And my happiness was in that girl at the time. And I went to school, I was upset about it. And so I purposed in my heart at that time that I was gonna be the example of somebody that did not know God, that did not go to church. I took up cussing, you know, and I can remember one time there in Smith Hall, there in the lobby, we were shooting pool, and I bust through the door, and I just let everybody have it, just profanity like a sailor. And there I was. I actually felt like, God, you're not there. And I actually remember telling God, God, if life is going to feel like this, I don't need you. And so I actually felt far from God. That's when I think I doubted him, one of the times I doubted him the most. There I was at MTSU, and I'm having this battle with my faith, and I can remember it. It was a Sunday morning, and I knew I should have been in church, and I didn't go because that was on purpose. And I was flipping through the television, the old brown cable box with the slider for the channels, and I can remember passing by a church service, and there was a preacher, a well-known preacher, T.D. Jakes, was preaching something, and it was a message called The Puppet Master. And at that time, I was upset. I was frustrated. And so I started to ridicule and say, that big fat dude up there on that TV screen talking that junk. If he only knew what I knew about God, he wouldn't be up there saying it. And so I went across the channels, and coming back, I passed back through, and he was saying something that really gripped me, and it really pulled me in. And what happened after that was paramount. It actually helped me to remember who I am and how I'd been raised in the God of my faith. There in the shower there, I was crying. I was talking to God about the fact I couldn't trust Him, and He didn't do things in my life. I think it was that moment when I was ready to either give it all up or jump all the way in. And so at that moment, God, I just heard the Spirit of the Lord speaking to me, saying, "Trust me." And in the moment of that frustration, I said, "Lord, I can't trust you. My life is messed up. The girl of my dreams, she's gone. And what are you going to do about that? It's over." And so at that moment, I really felt like the presence of God was really reasoning with me and coming to me saying, "Look, I really want to prove myself to you if you give me a chance." And so because I'd taken up cussing as my new hobby, I said, "God, here's what I want you to do. I want you to stop me from cussing. And I'm not going to give any effort to it. I'm going to be Mario. Everybody knows that when I come through the doors, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to cuss everybody out." And there it was. I walk over to Smith Hall in that same lobby, and where we're all shooting pool, and I bust through the door, and I start to wail out these profane words and cuss words and everything. And one of the guys jumped across the couch in the lobby, wrestled me to the ground, put his hands over my mouth. And I'm trying to, cuss him out through his hands, and I couldn't get a word out. And he looks at me and he says, "Mario, listen, you can't do it. We know what you're gonna do. You're gonna cuss everybody out. But you can't do it because parents complained about the amount of profanity they're hearing down here in this lobby, and they pulled their kid out of school. And so the RA said if we continue that kind of language in the presence of everybody, the visitors and everybody, that we were going to be written up and could be expelled." And so I'm really thankful that God didn't judge me for being as ridiculous as I really was at the time, but He did. He showed me through His love and through His mercy and through His grace that He's willing to meet me where I am. And I'm really thankful that really did give me a turning point in my life. There in the UC, at the University Center, I'd go to the grill 3 or 4 times a week, and I'd eat. But across the hall, in that little room, there was a group of people who would sit out there and talk every day. And I was intrigued by the crowd. Being in church, I knew what crowds looked like, but I was always more intrigued, more so than just the crowd, but I was intrigued by what they were drawn to. And so I got close enough to where I could hear what was going on. And there was a guy there that day, and he was what we would call a Scientologist. And the things that guy was talking about, it literally blew my mind. It introduced me to some things that we had not talked about in church. And it seemed to start making sense of all of this faith stuff that's out there in the wild blue yonder, the stuff that we can't grab a hold to and really understand and put our hands on, hardcore evidence. Listening to this guy seemed to make sense to me. And so that day I didn't bite it 100%. I just listened. And then the days went on, and I'd go and I'd listen to him again, and I'd get a little closer to him and involved in the group. And as the days went, I got closer until I found myself right there in the middle, listening to this guy talk about all the energies and the positive forces and all of the things that we can do within ourselves to create this life that we're looking for. And I remember walking, it'd probably been 3 weeks of listening to this guy. And I remember walking out of the UC, walking down by the great oak that sits out there. And I remember saying, okay, inside, I said, okay, I think I've decided. I've got the answers. And the stuff that I'd been told really doesn't do it for me. And I'm going to follow Scientology. And it was just like that. There was this silence. Although there were people all around and the busyness of the day, the busyness of the university center, there was this silence. And all I had to hear were my own thoughts. And there I was listening to myself saying, hey, you know what? I think I got a handle on this. I got it figured out. And as I was walking back to my dorm room, I could hear the voice of God in my inner being saying, okay, you're on your own. And it scared the daylights out of me. I started shaking. I thought I was going to fall to the ground as I was walking to my room. And so I took out running. I ran back to my dorm room, and I fell on my bed, and I just burst out into tears, and I'm panicking, and I'm saying, God, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying I want to be on my own. And I knew then, all the years of the preaching and the teaching and the faith that had been put in me, I knew then that I'm never going to have all the answers, that there's something about faith that I'm not going to understand. And no matter who told me that this is how it works, I knew they didn't have all the answers either. And so that day, God's love just overshadowed me, and I could literally feel my life in His hands. And the way I felt, I knew that putting my life in His hands would be a whole lot better than putting my life in my hands. And so that day was the day that the girl didn't matter anymore. I committed to going back to church because that's what was comfortable, and that's what I knew, and that's where I was most fulfilled. And from that day, I began to share my faith with those around me in a way that it was so convincing to myself. I wasn't out to convince anybody else. It was convincing to me. And so that was the day that I really, I felt was the turning point of my life.